Okay, so always same people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen are the pairs that we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you do stay to the end of the video, as we do have a bonus pair in store. I'll go through my trades for the week first and then progress into the analysis. If you do have any pairs you do want to skip ahead to, feel free to do that. Links in the description, the timestamps at the bottom of the video there. Don't want to say links. But yeah, we'll go through my trades first. So like I say, skip ahead on the timestamps. The pairs are there, so if you want to do that, feel free. But we'll go through some of the trades I took this week and also the DXY, and then we'll go through Euro USD and the remaining pairs. So bit of a tough week for me. Few losses this week. I was holding pound Aussie from last week. Didn't go to plan that trade. I mean, I still do expect to see some downside for pound Aussie. I'm still expecting a push back into these lows. I'm actually still looking for opportunities to enter the market as long as price doesn't break structure, because my expectation is that we are a little bit oversold. We've taken out major highs dating back to COVID over here. I do think we can see a bit of a rollover. So my bias is still bearish, and as long as price doesn't break structure, which is this swing high here, I still do expect to swing down. So still looking for re-entry, so I'm still looking to see if I can get back into that position. Euro USD, I was shorting as well, didn't go to plan either. And Euro USD, I'm not looking to get back into any shorting opportunities. Basically, if price could sustain this level, which was the plan coming into the week, I'm looking for another drop there for Euro. I do think the bigger move is back to highs. I'm still very bullish on Euro. I was looking to see if I can take advantage of some of the pullback before potentially some buys later on. Price didn't hold that level, broke through, and actually had a retest later in the week. So I do think Euro is probably on its bullish journey now, pushing back to highs. I think dollar might be looking at the same kind of move, but in the opposite direction. We'll get to that shortly, but I'm not looking to jump into Euro sells anymore. And Aussie yen as well, that one just took me out as well, but I'm still looking to buy this one as well. In fact, it's actually a better position than when I did pick it up. I'm looking for some buys off this area, lovely support, expecting to be acting as support again, and as we can see on that daily candle, it looks like it is. Nice wick to the downside, strong close. Basically looking at inverse head and shoulder pattern, if we can all see that. There we go, and I'm expecting a swing to the upside. So again, looking for re-entry, so I'm not done with Aussie yen, but probably just entered a bit too early into the trade there. But I'm looking for some re-entries. It looks like price is rejecting support pretty well, liking how candlesticks are forming, the wicks to the downside as well. So hopefully some re-entries next week to take a swing back into resistance. But not the best week, but again, that's a part of trading. Going to go through a few losses, just like you go through a few wins as well. My main focus is mainly my risk reward, not so much the win rate, but other times, you know, you're going to go through some difficult spells in trading, and that's a part of the game. And in my opinion, that's probably where the traders are made, during the tougher times, during the times of drawdown, and during the times where things are not going to plan. That's when the trader is made. But we'll get back to the analysis. In fact, let's start with the DXY, then we'll get to Euro USD. So with USD looking very bearish right now, I do think price can push back to these lows here at 98 roughly. I was looking for a bounce for Euro, so I was looking for, the DXY, I was looking for a bounce from this level this week. Didn't really hold, slight reaction, but price did break through. So that kind of ruined my dollar bullish plans for the week. And we slid to the downside, things are looking pretty bearish. Respecting structure, putting in lower highs now. So I do think we are just going to see the continuation of this bearish trend here and probably just take us back to the low. So in terms of opportunities, I would suggest some break and retest opportunities now. If we can really clear this 99.4 level out the way, looking for some retests, basically trying to catch the next lower high in the sequence. So we've got one over there, second, third, now looking for the fourth, and again a continuation into low. So that's my expectation for the week. Weakness with the USD. So taking that into Euro USD, I'll be expecting strength, hence why I'm not looking to sell this anymore, because it looks like the bullish trend is back in control now. The buyers are driving price higher successfully. We've broken through that counter trend line, so I do think Euro is on its way back to highs there at 1.155. So in terms of opportunity, now that we've had the retest of this level, I still think that's a nice place for a buy. We haven't really continued just yet. So there is a world where you come back for a retest and look for some buys off the back of that. But on the flip side as well, if you can clear some resistance here, I do think that would be a nice place for a buy as well. It's just about finding areas where you could possibly pick up a higher low and ride that bullish trend. Because if this is going to continue, then we just need to position ourselves within that trend to ride it back to the highs. And a retest of this level here at 1.125 or possibly this area, depending on the breakout, 1.13 looks like nice areas where potentially we could catch that next higher low, catch a nice reaction, and then maybe ride it back to highs. Again, in terms of targets, I'll leave that to you guys. I do expect price to eventually get there. But yeah, maybe you do look to be a bit more conservative with the trade. Don't necessarily have to look for the bigger move, of course, but from a swing perspective, that's where I do expect Euro to end up over the next few days. So that's the plan going into next week for Euro USD. Okay, so next up we've got USD JPY. So it is looking pretty bearish with this one. I've been looking for a bit of an up move, but we just haven't seen that. Yen hasn't really been as weak as I've anticipated it to be, and it looks like this dollar yen bearish trend is still very much in full flow. It looks like we've put another swing high in, and the market is just seeing that momentum, especially with the USD weakness coming into play now. So I do think we'll just push back to 140. In terms of shorting the pair, that's where the difficulty lies, because we are approaching a swing low here, and that's just not the place which I would be looking to short the market at all. I need us to push back into resistance, or at the very least clear this area of support so we can use it as a retest. So I think that could be a nice intraday move. I'm not the biggest fan because we have been pretty bearish for a while, so the market is a bit stretched here. So I would like us to have a bit of a relief push up, possibly put a lower high in, something like this with a head and shoulder pattern, and I think that could be a really nice swing back into the lows, and you're looking at a much better risk reward as well. Now, of course, it's up to the market. We may not see that bigger pullback. It would be nice to push back into resistance around 145.5 and catch a short from there, but if the market is going to be bearish and USD weakness is just going to stay present in the market, we're not really going to see that yen weakness. We might just break support, and that's probably the best opportunity you will find with dollar yen on the way back down to 140. So I would keep an eye on both areas, because if the market is just going to be very bearish, then this is probably the opportunity you'll find and be able to take advantage of. If we do see a bounce, well, be prepared for that bigger move, which could come around this 145.5 area, and that would be a nice place to get a stop loss above it as well. But in terms of direction, I do think dollar yen can keep falling. 140 will be the target. Keep an eye on both of those levels, but yeah, expecting a lot more downside for USD JPY. Okay, so next up we've got dollar CAD. So very bearish in dollar CAD. We did not respect support at all this week. Again, I was looking for that dollar bullish. I was looking for a bullish dollar this week. I was anticipating price to respect support and potentially rally, but we broke through that area with ease pretty much, and I haven't looked back since and cleared lows. So dollar CAD is looking pretty bearish, and I would anticipate more next week. I would hope to see a pullback into this area here. Nice brief pause in the market gave us another flush to the downside, so we could be seeing price tap back into that area, invite more sellers into the market, and that could give us the continuation back into support. I have mapped out this area on the daily chart. Really nice resistance. We broke through that area quite a long time ago and never got the retest, and I do think that's kind of my long-term target for dollar CAD. Ever since we kind of had that reversal, been looking for price to come back and retest this area, because that's where that bullish momentum came from. So I would expect us to potentially bounce or maybe retrace from this area quite significantly, and we're very, very close to that area at the moment, and I'll chalk it up to 1.36. So that's kind of my target for dollar CAD. But yeah, if we could see a pullback, that'd be great. Catch a lower high and swing it back down again, something like this. That's, of course, our now most recent lower high, and now we're creating some new lows. So just looking for a pullback and then continuing that momentum to the downside. So that's the plan going to next week for dollar CAD. Okay, so over to Euro Pound. So Euro Pound, we just about made it to my zone for this week. So we were trading around here last week. I said I'm looking for a bounce at this area, and we just about made it there. So yeah, Euro Pound, very well, kind of a bullish market. We have seen some bullish structure recently, higher highs and higher lows, really big push to the upside. And I'm still seeing a very corrective characteristic from this bearish move. So my instincts are still potentially a pullback, a correction for us to see more upside. But of course, taking into consideration how Euro-Pound moves, how choppy it's been, I'm not quite convinced that we're just going to see another continuation back to highs. That could be the case, but I'm going to be a bit more pessimistic and a bit more conservative for my approach. I think this is still a great place for a buy, but I kind of anticipate something like this happening for Euro-Pound. But just because I expect the bigger move might still be to the downside, doesn't mean that that up move won't be worthwhile. So I still think there's some upside we can look to capitalize on, but just being a bit wary of targets and not too kind of optimistic that we're just going to push right back to highs. Of course, we could do that. Can't see into the future, but taking into consideration how price is moving, the context of Euro-Pound, I wouldn't be so greedy with targets. So this is still a really nice place for a buy. Coming back into this area of demand, we broke to the upside. This is the first time price is coming back to retest it. So I would suggest keep an eye for like a double bottom or something, a strong bullish engulfing candle for an entry, and take advantage of some buys. In terms of targets, I'll probably be looking at these areas, more or less the same area there as well. I'll keep an eye on this level here around 0.85. I think these make for good targets where you can still get a decent risk reward, but also making sure that you're not being too optimistic with targets as well. So Euro-Pound, I think it's a great place. This 0.837 area, I'll call it. Great place to be looking for some entries, and depending how far you want to push the trade. I'm not saying don't have targets up here, but I would advise having targets before that, or at least some type of way to manage the trade on the way up as well. But that's my expectation next week for Euro-Pound. Okay, so over to Aussie dollar. So I've been pretty bullish on this one, but I've been looking for a push down first so I can buy it at a more respectable price, because right now kind of just having this weird ascending channel, if you will. The market's been extremely bullish, but has just become very corrective. So I've been looking for a pullback, which kind of represents a inverse head and shoulder pattern on the daily chart. So left head, and looking for that right shoulder to form. And that's the opportunity I've been looking for Aussie dollar to take some nice swing opportunities, but it doesn't look like we're getting that. It looks like price is just chugging to the upside and possibly just might continue from that area. So we might not see that bigger pullback after. So what are we looking next for Aussie dollar is some momentum to come back into the market. Show me that momentum is really there. One of the reasons why I've been looking for that pullback for Aussie dollar is because we've been so corrective. So typically when we are corrective like this, the market will push down, collect some more buys, and then continue on its way. If the market doesn't need to do that to continue, I should see some healthy momentum break to the upside, and then of course I can look for some pullbacks, because I now know the market's healthy again, there's a lot of momentum in the market, and there's a likeliness for us to continue. Then I'll probably keep an eye on one of these two zones, either the retest of the high there 0.65, or coming back to this kind of area of demand where we're starting to see some momentum come. If that can continue, that would be great. So Aussie dollar, I do anticipate more upside. I'll keep an eye on both these zones, but it is very pivotal, important that we do see really healthy momentum breaking the highs. If we're very corrective, then I won't be looking for these retests. I think that's very, very important to say. If the market just clears the high a little bit, then starts to pull back a little bit, yeah, I'm not going to look to follow that. I need to see momentum. This is too corrective for me to be looking to buy. If the market really takes control and the buyers really enter the market for a big breakout, then I'll look for these setups. Otherwise, I would stay away. But if we do, great. We'll talk about some break and retest opportunities later in the week. But there's the plan for Aussie dollar. Okay, so over to New Zealand CAD. So I'm still very bullish on this one. I'm still kind of looking at this overall bullish structure, still kind of treating this as a massive kind of manipulation, fake out, V-shaped pattern. So I do expect this to be our correction for more upside. So the plan is kind of try and catch that higher low for the continuation back into resistance and potentially further. So I would anticipate us to kind of hold this general area of support to continue to the upside. I think a nice characteristic of this trade would be if we can see another push down and potentially some wicks to the downside as well, taking out some early traders, potentially faking out some people in the lower time frames, and then from there we can rally. Essentially, all I want price to do is hold support here. But a nice kind of added touch is if you can get a nice wick piercing through the low, and then we can see a push up, especially because the market has been ranging, so there will be a lot of stop losses here. So if you can kind of get that out of the way, I then think we can see that momentum continue and price really look bullish after that. But yeah, New Zealand CAD, it's been the same plan for the past 3 or 4 weeks now, to be honest. Been looking for upside, it's just been sideways, but I still do have the same bias as long as we can hold this general kind of 0.815. If we have a really big break through this, then I wouldn't be interested in the buys anymore. But if we can more or less hold that level, that keeps me bullish, keeps me expecting more upside, and a push back into the swing high at 0.831 for next week. Okay, so over to pound NZD. So I do think we've come into a very nice place for a short. So I've been looking for us to kind of respect this area here, but we didn't. Price did break through that, but this is kind of my last point of call, coming back into resistance on the left, where I do expect to see a head and shoulder pattern form. You got your left, you got your head, you got potentially your right shoulder. I think this could be a really nice place for a short, because I've been expecting pound NZD to have a bit of a drop. I know price has been in a very bullish trend, the market is definitely bullish, but I do think we are in an area where a top is likely to form. Even if the bigger move is still to the upside, we might correct a little bit and then continue. We don't tend to normally move in a straight line or trend forever, and judging about characteristics, the wicks we've seen to the upside, the kind of violent push down, the very corrected push to the upside here, I do think we are likely to form a bit of a top. So what I'm looking at is potentially a bit of a double top here to form, maybe some wicks through the high, and then hopefully capitalize on a really nice swing back into support. I do think we can go further as well, which is why I like the trade, because if this is a lower high, you would expect us to break the lows and see more downside beyond that. Of course, doesn't necessarily mean you have to look to target further than that. I think even just a trade back to the support level could be a really nice trade, depending on your entry. Could be looking at a pretty big risk reward there. So no need necessarily to target further. It's just an expectation. If this is a low high, I expect new lows. But yeah, very correct to push to the upside. We had a nice reaction there on Friday. Let's look to see if we can find some entries off the back of that early next week. But my expectation is a push back into support at 2.15, as long as we can hold this area. If we do rally through this area, then yeah, price is probably bullish again, and then we can talk about some break and retest to buy and actually ride it back to highs. So if this 2.27 level doesn't hold, then yeah, I would be bullish. But for now, we're still below, still respecting it. So I'm looking for this sell back into 2.215 next week. Okay, so now on to CAD Yen. So not a big fan of the price action for CAD Yen, very, very choppy. Yeah, I'll probably just chalk this as consolidation. We are still just about hanging on to some bullish structure, which still does give me the expectation of another swing higher. But as I just revealed to you guys on the higher time frames, price action isn't looking too particularly great here. So it's not my favorite yen pair to trade. Aussie yen looks a lot better. Some other yen looks a lot better. Even some yen pairs, which we'll get to in a moment, look better. But CAD yen, not the biggest fan favorite of this one. We are still respecting support, so if that can continue, I do think we can see a rally. I do like how corrective we are at support as well, giving me the impression that we're not really seeing price break through support. So naturally, I do expect to see a drive higher. It's just the conditions aren't great. If we were a bit more trendy, then I can get behind this opportunity a lot more. So yeah, for that reason, I'll stay away myself. But I do like how price is reacting to support. So if you can get some stop losses underneath the low there, I still think this is a nice place for a trade. And if we are going to see price potentially start to trend, we could still see a swing back into resistance there and further as well. Because we are choppy, I probably would be slightly more conservative with targets. I mean, it's not a huge difference, but I would look to try and lock in some gains at 105.3 from experience. When things are a bit more choppy, you don't really want to be looking for the big swing, because the odds of price, seeing a nice rally in your favor, then coming back down suddenly are a lot higher versus when things are trending well and there's a lot of momentum in the market. So there's nothing wrong about targets up here, but I would be careful and keep an eye and see how price reacts there, or maybe just look at that as an area for a partial target. But as long as 103.5 can hold, I do expect to see a rally to the upside, so keep an eye on entries there. In fact, that's a nice entry on the 4-hour chart, but maybe if you're a bit more intraday, you might look a little bit on the lower time frames, but keep an eye on that area. At least expect to swing back to 105, but I do think we can see 106 as well. And that'll be the expectation, the plan for next week for CAD Yen. Okay, so over to pound USD. So very, very bullish week this week. Very strong close on Friday there as well. Looks like it's breaking resistance in very bullish fashion. You can see this week's candle, not much wick to the downside. It was just pushing very aggressively to the upside. We had a lot of wicks in prior weeks at resistance, which I was expecting a bit of a drop there. We did have one, a little one last week with that lower wick there, but I was expecting a much bigger push. Same with the euro as well. But with the weakness we saw in the dollar, strength a bit in pound this week as well, that was just a recipe for a very bullish week there for pound USD. So it does make analysis pretty straightforward going into next week. It just means as long as price stays above this resistance, I'm looking for more upside. The trend is still very much up. Now we've cracked through major resistance. As long as we can stay in this kind of bullish structure and price stays above 1.34, I would expect more upside. If we do open up bearish and see some really strong selling pressure, which does take us back underneath the level, well, this could end up being a big fake out, and that would, of course, not be a bullish signal. So that's the only reason why I would be cautious about the buys. But in terms of the trend, in terms of momentum, in terms of structure as well, everything is pointing up. So I should be looking at some type of pullback. I like this brief range here where the momentum ripped to the upside from. So I think some entries perhaps on the hourly chart could look good. And then wherever we form the swing high, if price push ups and let's say we have a pullback from there, then naturally that will be the target for the trade. Of course, the high hasn't formed yet, so we don't know where. It could be there, it could be 100 pips higher. We have to wait and see until next week, but wherever that high forms, naturally that would be a good target to have for the trade. But yeah, pound USD very bullish as long as we stay above 1.342, expecting another swing to the upside. So that's the plan next week for pound USD. Okay, so over to pound CAD. So I'm still pretty bullish on this one. I do think more upside is likely. We are very corrective, which is the thing I don't like about the pair. We are still trending to the upside in this ginormous bullish trend, which I do think we're going to hit a top soon. But I was expecting us to respect structure and continue, but we didn't respect structure. You can see by those wicks there, we have just about taken out those highs. So I do expect us to come back into the high here and potentially see some new highs there for pound CAD. Pound USD is looking pretty bullish as well, and typically pound CAD and pound USD 8-9 times out of 10 do the same thing or push in the same direction most of the time. So if pound USD is going to be soaring to the upside, very rarely you're going to see pound CAD melting to the downside in case maybe CAD's doing something crazy at the time, but most of the time they push in the same direction. So I do think pound CAD to join the party. Like I said, it's a bit more corrective, so I don't like that aspect about it, but we are still making higher highs and higher lows. Like I said, we were breaking through structure there, so I would anticipate a bit of a pullback because we are corrective, so I do think we can have a bit of a drop there. But I would expect another higher low to form and that to take us back into resistance. There might be a break and retest opportunity above resistance here, perhaps on a lower time frame to keep an eye on, but I think this would be the better trade back into a nice area where we had a brief pause, some nice momentum, haven't yet come back to this area of demand around 1.845. I think that would be a nice place for a buy and a swing back into resistance. You can even look at just a swing back into the high there, keep it relatively simple. But I do think we can push back into the highs at 1.875. So yeah, very, very bullish for pound CAD. I do think we're going to push back to resistance and then we'll go from there. Perhaps we might sell, but we can speak about that probably next week. But for now, looking for a bit of a drop, another higher low to form, kind of like we did over here, looking at another one, and then a continuation back into resistance. So that's the plan next week for pound CAD. Okay, so over to pound yen. So I am bullish still on pound yen. We do have this bullish structure here, which I'm looking to follow. We just about broke structure to our left there, which is what basically changed my bias from bearish on the higher time frames back to bullish. We had this bearish structure, which I was looking to follow, but we had this bullish leg, which just about closed above the high. So that does just about validate invalidate my bearish bias, and now I'm looking to continue and flow with this bullish structure. So now I'm still seeing higher highs and higher lows. The pullback has been relatively corrective, more so recently as well, which is what I like to see. It does tell me that, okay, we're not really seeing much selling pressure here, so we would expect this to be a pullback for price to continue higher. There's a nice kind of area of demand just below us, which is where the swing happened from. So I would suggest if we can push back into this area, that would be a nice place for our buy. And potentially that's where we can look for our entries to take this higher. And of course, targets naturally back at resistance, back at the swing high at 196, nothing too crazy. So pound yen, I like the structure. It looks relatively straightforward, nothing too crazy about this. We broke structure in the higher time frame. Now we're just looking to continue this 4-hour bullish structure. As long as we do not take out this low here, so that's at 190.5, I will be expecting buys to come into the market and then push higher. If we do break structure there, I'll probably just chalk this up to a range, to be honest. If you start breaking structure against the downside, yeah, I wouldn't be overly confident in any direction there for pound yen, to be honest. And I'll just probably focus on other pairs which look clearer. But for now, pound yen does look clear. And as long as we can maintain this low, I would expect a push to the upside. So keep an eye on 191.5, looks healthy. Let's see if we can find some entries there. There might even be some entries on a breakout as well. Things look very corrective. Breakout of the channel, that could be a nice buy there too. So keep an eye on that. But that's the swing I'm expecting for next week for pound yen. Okay, so over to gold. So gold, I am pretty bullish on this one now. It looks like we are starting to break out of this descending channel. I've talked about these highs here, which I mapped out with the channel, with the lows as well. We had a really nice rejection of support there, prior resistance, nice rally to the upside. Now it looks like price is trying to break out. It's not the most clear-cut breakout in the world. We have technically closed above the channel, but I like it when I see big, meaningful candles break out because that's undeniable. I'll be a lot more confident with that breakout there. With this type of breakout, I wouldn't be so surprised if we just close back below there as well. So I do want price to show a bit more evidence of the breakout, which just basically means a bit more upside. Then yeah, I think some lower time frame break and retests, more so like the 15-30 minute chart, could provide some really nice opportunities to take gold to the upside, because it is still very much in the bullish market, and that's one of the key things I've been trying to drill home about gold. Although we have been a bit bearish, a bit choppy over the past few days, few weeks, the overall trend is still very much. Zoom out, look at the overall picture. Yeah, this is a very, very bullish market. No real signs of reversal just yet. Sure, signs of slowing down have come into the market, but not a situation where I'll be expecting a big sell just yet, or at least looking for one. If, however, we do start to respect this area, I do think it's also a nice place to short from as well. So if the breakout does happen and we do really see some continuation, great buys just back to resistance there, basically all-time highs. If we do see a meaningful reaction and a strong bearish signal from this area, perhaps a really strong bearish engulfing candle, I still think this is a nice place to short. Just like we formed a lower high here, and of course the high there, we could still form another one. So it's still make or break. Like I said, I'm not completely confident in this breakout yet, hence why if we do come back down, I still think it's a great place to short. And then targets naturally back at support down there, just keeping it very simple. So the sells still look good if we see the reaction. If not, then the buys is where it's going to be at. And my expectation with USD as well, because I'm expecting USD weakness, I kind of do expect gold to rally. So I'm expecting the rally, but as a trader, you want to be able to trade both sides of the coin. So if we do push down, be prepared for the shorts as well. But it's going to be very pivotal what we do in this area. It will make up my bias, whether I'm looking for the swing back to the all-time highs or swing back into support at 31.60. So keep an eye on that area for next week for gold. Okay, so over to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin looking very, very bullish. We just created all-time highs this week. We did push back down though, so we are kind of slowing down a little bit, but I'm still kind of looking at that as an opportunity to buy it and follow momentum. As long as this 4-hour structure stays healthy, we see frequent pullbacks, higher lows, momentum kicks back in. I don't see anything too wrong with it. especially from a trading perspective. I'm not talking about where Bitcoin is going to get to next. I have no idea. I'll say the next big psychological level would be 120k, which is up there. But for now, you can see 4-hour chart is displaying very clean bullish structure. I've highlighted this. Well, actually, I was actually talking about this range here not long ago. We've seen a few really nice ranges Bitcoin's created and sharp breakouts from those ranges, but not any pullbacks to retest it. Starting from here, nice breakout, no retest. Another breakout here, no retest. Another breakout here. Now it looks like potentially we're going to get a retest. So I'll keep an eye for some opportunities here. Perhaps nice double bottom at 106k. And that could be a lovely opportunity to swing it back to resistance and maybe a lot further as well. I wouldn't say Bitcoin's the type of market which I want to have kind of fixed targets with. It's more of a market, especially in this situation, where I kind of just want to trail a stop loss and just see how far we can take it. Similar to gold, where we're in a bullish climate right now. Price could rip to the upside. Who knows how far sort of situation. I think taking profits at the high there makes sense, but in this situation, I would try and be a bit more optimistic with the trade there. But in terms of an entry, in terms of a place for an entry, the retest of the range makes a lot of sense, and it's still a very bullish market. Until I see some red flags, I'm still going to anticipate more upside. And a red flag would be a break of structure or some strong selling pressure. Then that's when I'll probably not be so bullish. But for now, everything is pointing to the upside. So that's the plan next week for Bitcoin. Okay, so over to the bonus pair, which for this week is the NAS. I like this one a lot. I like how we're setting up on the higher time frames. Had a bit of a drop just on Friday there, which is a little bit wool, but overall the market is very, very bullish, and I'm just looking at this drop as just an opportunity to keep buying it. We're very firmly above the 200 moving average, which is always a good kind of metric in terms of the overall trend in the market. If you zoom out, look how price has respected in the past very, very well, and now we're back above it again. I've mapped out two areas where we could see price potentially continue from. The area which we're trading in now, I marked this range here. We spiked into that on Friday. So far, it is holding as support. So I would keep an eye on this area, because if we do respect it early next week, I think we might just drift on back to the upside. I like the wick there, big kind of scary bearish candle there, but it's just come back into an area of support, respected it pretty well. I wouldn't be surprised if by Wednesday, Thursday, we're starting to rally back to 21,300, 21,400. If the market is going to be more bearish and drop further, well, there is this level just below us at 2,300, which I think is probably even better level in terms of the confluence. We've got the 200 moving average SMA running through the market here, lining up very, very well with that area. We've got this gap here, which price created a few weeks back, which we haven't filled yet. We could still go and do that. And it also retests the prior high here, which gave us the last big drop to the downside. So it's a real pivotal area of support in the market. And if I can see price get there and start to slow down, provide some nice wicks, rejection, I think that's a great place to buy. And I do expect us eventually to get back to the all-time high. So it could be an idea where you get long and just kind of manage the trade, but you have the expectation that you could be looking to swing it all the way back to the highs there, which could be a phenomenal trade in itself. But at least a push back to resistance here. If you're looking for just a more kind of realistic position, swing back to resistance into the highs there makes a load of sense. But I do think the bigger move from NAS is back to the all-time highs again. But this is the bonus pair for next week. A couple areas to keep an eye on, 2,800 and 2,300. Keep an eye on those areas, but I do expect to see price push back to highs and eventually get back to all-time highs pretty soon. And that, guys, does bring us to the end of the analysis. If you have found it useful, please be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment down below any pairs you're looking at for next week. I'm interested to find out. Make sure you do check out the Discord link to Elevating Traders. That's linked in the description below. Free to join, can chat with other traders, chat with myself. So go check it out if you are interested. And of course, hit the bell so you don't miss out on any streams or uploads in the future. But guys, I really do appreciate you tuning in. Have a great weekend, and I'll catch you all next week.